Hey guys, welcome to Smith's Kitchen. Brian, Mr. Smith Kitchen. Today it's not Wednesday or Thursday. We're not gonna. We're gonna cook sorta, but we're not going to cook a meal. We're not baking anything because it's Tuesday. So, as I've been talking in my last few videos, it's about time to start processing a can. And even though I did a few videos way back when, they're not very good videos. Matter of fact, they're borderline. Not horrible, but not good. So, right. And I got help. But I thought today we'd do some tomato sauce. Tomato sauce is really easy to make. It's really easy to process. But it does take a couple days, a few minutes each day. Because today we're going to get the tomatoes prepped, and we're going to cook down the sauce to thicken it. And there is some importance to sauce and time. So when you're doing tomato sauce, you can use the big fat juicy tomatoes. The downside to that is they're really juicy, and they make a lot of water. That's a lot of water in that tomato. Water's not your friend when making sauce. So when you cook it down, it could potentially it goes from like a 12-quart pot down to like 6 quarts worth of tomato sauce in no time. So you want to think about what kind of tomato you want to use. We use Roma tomatoes. If you don't know what a Roma tomato is, hold on, I'll show you. This is a Roma tomato. You can find them at any grocery store for that matter, wholesaler. They're easy to grow. And the difference between this and what they call a juicer tomato, which are the big like beefsteak tomatoes, is this is very meaty. It doesn't have a lot of juice in it, so to speak, not a lot of water content, but a lot of meat. So these are good for making sauce, crushed tomatoes, the rotel we make, salsa, just about anything tomato-wise other than beefsteak or juicing tomatoes are good if you're making juice. They're great on a hamburger, or a chicken sandwich, or diced up in a salad. But these are the kind of like the workhorse of tomatoes. So I'm going to get you down to the counter here in a second, and we'll start going over what you need to make tomato sauce with. And a couple of these things you may not need to do crushed tomatoes with, which I'm going to do a quick video on those also. This is pretty much going to be a series of videos on doing different things with tomatoes. We're going to make salsa, we're going to do a rotel, we're going to do tomato juice, we're going to do crushed tomatoes, spaghetti sauce, all kinds of cool stuff, and I'll show you how to process them. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I hope you get something out of this video and many of my other videos. We are a channel that's all food related. What do we do with food? From the garden to cooking it to baking, things of that nature. If you're returning, welcome. I'm glad you came back. I think maybe you're a glutton for punishment, but I'm glad you came back. We got a bunch of new subscribers. Welcome, thank you. Don't forget thumbs up, thumbs down, subscribe. The notification bell is right beside the subscribe button, and comment. Feel free to comment. Just keep it civil. Be nice. We are a neighborhood of many trying to promote goodwill in the neighborhood. So, that being said, let's jump down here to the counter and talk about things we'll need. Alright, be back in 1 second. Okay, we're down here at the counter. So, things we will need to make tomato sauce with. First thing we'll need is some tomatoes. And this is the first batch. If you're friends with me on Facebook or part of the group, we had about 75 pounds worth of tomatoes. We're now up to about 100 pounds of tomatoes with more on the vines. But what we did first was we went ahead and Chris has been in there diligently quartering them all up. So we took the tomatoes and just cut them into 4 pieces. I'm going to show you how we do it, but I'll talk to you about how you could possibly do tomato sauce without the machine we're using. And after you get all those quartered up, you're going to need a 12-quart or a big pot, biggest pot you got. Ours is 12-quart. And in our case, we're using a food mill. And what we do is we just put the chunks of tomatoes in here. It spits the sauce out here, the seeds and the skins out there, so we don't have to take the skins off of them. Now, let's say you don't have a food mill, or you don't want to purchase one, which realistically, a food mill like this is not very much, about 25, 30 bucks, and it'll last a lifetime if you buy a decent one. We've had this one now for 4 years, still works fine. Um, if you, let's say you don't have a food mill, you can bring up a pot of boiling water, fill your sink full of ice water. You dump your tomatoes in there until you see the skin split off of them, start to split. Take them out of the pot, put them in the ice water to stop them from cooking, and then you can mash them up in a strainer to get the juice out of them. That's a lot of work. This is so much easier. So I highly recommend getting one. But all we're going to do is literally, because I'm going to show you right here, is we'll load the food mill up. All right, we got tomatoes in the food mill, and I wipe my hand off. And all we're going to do, the food mill comes with a plunger, and there's two different types of food mills. There's this type, and then I have one down the basement somewhere that's a circle and has a grinder on the top. Those are a Foley, Foley food mill. Those are also a lot of work, but they are a little less expensive than this one. These come with, you can get them with motors, so they automatically just do it. This one just has a turn handle, and all we're going to do is just start turning this and pushing the tomatoes down in. And as you can see, right, I'm pretty sure you can see it. We got juice coming out, sauce, and the future sauce, the beginnings of sauce coming out, and so we got the sauce coming out here along with all the meat and goodness. Skins and seeds are coming out right there. Bring it in so you can maybe see it a little better there. There we go. And all you do is just go ahead and process it like this. And then as the glass bowl I've got sitting there in the front gets full, I'll put it in the 12-quart pot. And once I get done doing all this and we get the 12-quart pot full, we'll talk about what to do next. So we went ahead and we milled all the tomatoes up. Let me show you what we got. So it took me about 45 minutes, but we got, what's that, 12, almost 18 quarts of tomatoes, at least 18 quarts of tomatoes. I can't remember if this is a 12 or 16 quart pot. And I can't right offhand remember if this is 6 or 8. I'm almost saying this is 8 and this is 16 because it's twice the size either way. But if that's the case, we've got about 24 quarts here of tomatoes. Now, what was separated from that? All of this, right, by using the food mill. And what can we do with this? The things we can do with the extras right here, there's a couple things. We can set these out on trays, let them dry in the sun, or put them in the oven and let it dry a little quicker. And then if we let it dry out in the sun and not in the oven, we can separate the seeds, use the seeds next year. If we dry the tomato skins and shenanigans that's in there, we can grind that up and make it into tomato powder. There are dishes that take tomato powder. I don't use any of them personally, but they are out there. But what we're probably going to do with this batch here, because we'll have plenty of more to worry about drying later. If you have a dehydrator, that's ideal. You can dehydrate this in a dehydrator. You could tomato chips if you're into that sort of thing. You could, like I said, make powders out of it, whatever. But I am just simply going to put this in my garden and let it, decompose and add nutrients back into the soil, which is what we do with 99% of our table scraps. Anyhow, for compost. But so what do we do from here? Well, this is where you kind of have a lazy day, nothing better to do, because we're pretty much done as far as any manual labor goes for a minute. I am just simply going to stick the lids on these just like such. But I'm not going to put them on tight. I'm going to leave them offset. I'm going to turn both these on a nice low setting, medium low. And we're just going to let these cook down until we get the desired thickness of tomato sauce. And we're also, by venting them like this, we're allowing some of that water, because there is water in there. And you can't really see that. Roma's great sauce tomato. They don't get a whole lot of water, but as it sits here, you'll slowly see water start to come up. Alright, and then what we're going to do after this is, after we've cooked them down to a nice consistency, we'll take them off and we'll put them in the fridge. The whole pots, both pots, we're just going to put them in the fridge and let them sit overnight. And then when I come back, you'll be able to see the water because they'll actually separate. Any water that's left after cooking these down for, I want to say, a good six hours, on a low heat. If not a little longer, if you've got more time. But you put these on, you spend your half hour or so getting your tomatoes to this point. You let them cook down all day, and you go on about watching movies, spending time with family, playing in the backyard, chores, whatever it is you got to do that day. They're not going anywhere, and you don't have it up high enough that you're boiling these things out. That's not the point of this. The point of this is just to let them cook, reduce, get some of the water out there, and then at the end of the day, when they've cooked their 6, 8, 9 hours, put them in the fridge. And then, that's it until the next step. So, once I get these cooked down, get in the fridge, tomorrow morning when I come back, or like 5 seconds from now for you, we will take a look and see what we got to do next and process them. Alright, I'll see you here in just a second. Okay, so it's been a day since we boiled down our tomatoes, or our tomato sauce, and we put it in the fridge overnight, and most of the day today. I had to work today. And so now we got a couple things to look at, and then we got to reheat the tomato sauce. I know it kind of sounds counterintuitive, but there's a reason why we put it in the fridge. As the sauce cools and it condenses, it becomes heavier than any water that will be in the sauce. So you want it to cool down, and any water that's in them will come to the top, and you can take that water off, because you don't want a bunch of water in your sauce. Then it makes your sauce look funny. So here, let me turn the camera real quick, see if I can do this in one fell swoop. If not, I apologize in advance. And we'll take a look at the sauce, because this sauce actually didn't really have any water to speak of. Get you down here on the small pot. But there's another thing you'll want to look at when you're going to make your own sauce. See the line right here? Okay, our sauce was originally up to here. We cooked it down that much. So we started with just a ton of sauce, but we brought it down. Now, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's a little glistening right along the tomato sauce there, and that's literally all the water we have. So in this case, since there's not a lot, if there was a lot, you could just simply take a spoon and put it in there and pull it out a little bit at a time. But all I'm going to do is, and I'm sure somebody will say, oh, Brian, that's so unsanitary. We're about to put these things in boiling water for 40 minutes. I'm just going to take a paper towel and put it down along the edge here, and I'm going to wick up that water. Which you could do this at home too. It's not going to hurt anything. I mean, we're not dumping it right down, but see how that got wet? That means there was some water on there, because the water is going to soak up long before the tomato sauce does. And we're going to get some of that water off there, and then I'll come over here and I'll do it to the big pot. There's just like this light glazing of water on these. This is why I use Roma tomatoes. Sorry, I didn't mean to jerk you up like that. But this is why we grow Romas for our tomato sauce. And most tomato sauce manufacturers use Roma or a variety of Roma. There's like 3 or 4 different varieties of Roma. because they have the most meat and little water, which gives you good flavor and a good sauce at a lower cost, so to speak. You know, in the tomato world, you want that. That way, you know, you get maximum amount for minimum price. You know, so far the only thing we've got into this is about $1.50, maybe $2 worth of electricity, and about $2 worth of seeds. So we've got $4 into this so far. And we're not going to heat these. We're not going to boil them in here. It's because since I'm not pressure canning them, which there's a pressure canning option that takes less time. I'd much rather water bath these, where we just let them sit in boiling water. But it does take about 3 times as long. So instead of taking 15 minutes to pressure can these, it's going to take 40 minutes. And we don't want to make the house humid. So when we meet back up after I get these put on the stove and warm back up, because we want them to be hot when we can them. We're going to can in here, and then we'll go outside and put them in the canner and talk about what we're doing out there. So let me get these warmed back up, and when I come back, we'll start putting them into the cannons. All right, I'll see you here in a second. So we got our tomato sauces warmed up. So what I did was I brought the tomato sauce up to a simmer, and I let it simmer for about 10 minutes. Now, I did have some things I had to rearrange a little. We are going to have to do some of them inside, some of them outside. Our burner's not big enough to accommodate both of the big pots. But let me show you what I did outside real quick before we start canning. And then we'll get into how to can. Our sauce is warmed up. Out here, I've got my 23-quart pot, and I've got about 1.5 gallons of water in there, because when you water bath can, I've got the burners on. I don't know if you can see them underneath there or not. Not really. But they are on and going. I just spent all day yesterday refurbishing that bad boy, so it's running top notch at the moment. But we want to get that water in there. We want to get it warming up. You don't want it bubbling yet, but you want it to probably be, I guess, technically speaking, about 170 degrees. Right around there. You don't want it to be ice cold. You put hot jars in a cold water, you could potentially crack the glass. You want everything to be as close to temperature as possible. Tomato sauce about 180 degrees, water about 180 degrees, jars, which we're going to talk about right now, about right close to 180 degrees. So it used to be you had to boil and sanitize your jars. You no longer have to do that. You don't have to do it with lids, especially if they're reused jars. You want to wash them with hot soapy water, and then, like I did right here, I just have them sitting in that is piping hot water. The water in our house is set at about 140 degrees, so that water is probably close to 140 degrees. That way they stay warm to meet the needs of the tomato sauce, to meet the needs of the canner. Lids, depending on the type of lids you use, I use ball lids. They don't require you to boil them, they just require you to wash them. So that's what we did. Now, let me get you down here to the counter, and we'll start the process of canning this stuff. And we'll talk about what I'm doing in that process. Got our jars out. Now, like I said, I have them in boiling hot water, so they're nice and cleaned off. When doing tomato sauce, you have a couple options here. We have to balance the acidity, because today's tomatoes, depending on the tomatoes, the seeds, the manufacturer, wherever you're getting tomatoes from, determines the acidity level. Now, they're not all created equal. So to balance that, we have 2 options. We can either put lemon juice in here first or citric acid. I'm going to use citric acid. Couple reasons. A, it's not that expensive, and you put less in it. Lemon juice, you need for just pint jars, you need a tablespoon's worth, which is the biggest measuring utensil you have as far as teaspoons, tablespoons go. You need 2 of those. That could get expensive quick if you're doing a lot. Where with citric acid and pints, you only need 1/4 teaspoon, which isn't that much. So first thing I'm going to do with my jars is I'm going to put 1/4 teaspoon of citric acid in here. What that does is it balances the acidity level. If you're using lemon juice, you don't want to use fresh squeezed lemons. You want to use pre-bottled lemon juice. It's got a stable acidic level to it, so you want that. So first thing we want to do is get our 1/4 teaspoon. Now if you're doing quart jars, it would be a 1/2 teaspoon of citric powder or 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, which is quite a bit. Next thing you're going to need is a funnel. You're going to put your funnel there. I got to find my stick with my measurements. There they are. And all we have to do now is just take our hot tomato sauce, and we're going to fill these jars up so they're 1/4 inch from the top. That's important. That space in between the top of the lid, or the top of the rim, and the product you're putting in a jar is called head space. It's like air space, and you need that so that way your sauce will have room to breathe and vacuum in the process. Now they do make things that they're sticks that show you 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch. I just simply made my own at the end of a stick, at the end of a skewer. That way, and it has served me well for years. If you're new to canning, I would almost recommend you go get that tool. We had one at one time, and it disappeared. I'm sure one of the kids somewhere down the road found it, played with it, and never took it back, or never put it back. All right, so we got the sauce in there. It's at a 1/4 inch. It's a little hot. So the next thing we're going to do is take a paper towel, and depending on who you talk to, depends on what you wipe this room with. You either use white vinegar or hot water. I'm just using hot water because it's what I have right next to me. You're going to wipe that rim clean. You want nothing in between the glass rim and the rim of your lid. Okay, so you've got after we do that, we're going to take our lid. This is considered the lid. This is considered a ring that holds it on there. We'll place our lid on there center, just like such. We're going to put our lid on there. Now, when you put your ring on, that's really hot. You want to put it on finger tight. You don't want to sit there and smash that bad boy down. You want to put it on till your fingers can't turn it anymore. Finger tight. That way it doesn't crush the seal on there. It just sets the seal on there. All right, so I'll show you one more time. So we got our acetic acid in there, or our tablespoon of lemon juice. We're going to go ahead, take our tomato sauce, put it in there. And I'm only doing 8 at a time because that's all the canner will hold. I can't double stack them like I can with jelly jars. So we'll get that filled up. They even make an official ladle for canning. I've never owned one, never used one. That's one thing I don't really think is necessary. A measuring stick is necessary though. You get too much in there, you'll have what's called siphoning, and your stuff will boil out. All right, so we're at a 1/4 inch. Take my towel, wipe my rim off. If you're doing anything sticky, jellies, jams, things like that, that is probably one of the most important parts out there. We're going to grab our lid and our ring, center our lid, put on our ring. Maybe, if I can get it to start. There we go. Finger tight, no more, no less. All right, let me get these ones filled up, and when I come back, we'll meet out at the canner. Okay, so we're outside. You'll have to excuse the air conditioner running. And I've got my jars in here, as you can see right there. Now, I've got them covered with the water. You want your water to be 1 inch or 2 above the lids, okay? Now, what are we gonna do to make all that happen? Sorry, I have to stand on a stool. The setup here is still a little too high. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the lid to my 23-quart pot, which in this case is a pressure canner that no longer has its seal. This pressure canner is, honest to God, about 65 years old. It has lasted forever. I'm just gonna set it on there. I'm not gonna seal it tight. I'm not gonna anything. We're just going to bring this up to a boil. I'll turn the heat up a little bit on it. Now, Once it starts boiling, we've got our cans in there. Now, unfortunately, this pressure canner, this big pot, isn't tall enough to double stack the cans or the jars. Underneath those jars, I don't know if you can see it or not, is a rack. You do not want, no matter what you're canning in, water bathing in, because you can do this in a deep quart, 6-quart pot if you wanted to. You want something in between those jars and the bottom of the pot. All right, I have a rack that comes with the pressure canners in there. If you don't, they will rattle and break in the discussion, and you'll have a big pot full of glassy tomato sauce. So, rack in the bottom of it, which I'll show you one here after we get done, and cover on, inch or two of water above the jars. Once it comes to a boil, not before, once it comes to a boil, set your timer for 35 minutes. Don't take the lid off. Once it starts boiling and you set your timer, just let it go. 35 minutes is what we're going to process these for. Once that 35 minutes is up, I will turn the heat off and I will let them sit there for 10 minutes. Just sit there, calming down. Everything's got to calm down. Then we'll take the lid off and take a look at them. So let me get these boiling, and when I come back, we'll take the lid off and take a look at them. All right, see you here in a second. All right, so we are at the end of our processing. I went ahead and processed all the jars. I thought I'd bring you along for the last ones. So after we got them processed, we let them boil for 35 minutes. It has now been sitting in the pot for 10 minutes, just sitting there, chilling, relaxing. Here, I'm going to show them to you because I want to point out something real quick, too, as I destroy us. All right, so there are our tomato sauces in there, but you see I got 3 empty jars in there. So the reason why I did that was so we could not have the jars bouncing around. All right, we wanted balance to that. And then that way I don't have to worry about them breaking on accident or on purpose. So the things we want to do, let me get this camera somewhat situated here. There we go. Some things we wanted, what we'll need to do next, now that it's been 10 minutes, we don't want to leave them in there any longer than that. Too much longer than that, they can get a bacteria growing in them, and I can't remember what the name of it is now right offhand. I just learned about it over the last year. We gotta get them out of there. To get them out of there, you're gonna need these tongs. All right, if you have no other tools for canning, tongs, make sure the rubber seal is on them and is in good shape. That's what's holding your jar. A measuring stick, so that way you can see how far you are from the top, and a funnel, so that way you can pour things in without spilling it all over the place. But when we go to take them out of here, we're gonna bring you over here to the can. We'll just simply grab them by the tongs, and we're gonna pull them straight out. All right, don't worry about if there's some water on the top of it. That will actually boil off. You don't want to death grip the jar, okay, by any means. Oh, did you hear that? It popped. That's a good thing. That means it's sealed. If you death grip them, you run the risk of you can actually break the seal on. And if you look where I got it gripped at, it's right underneath that lip. And we're going to set them here on the counter. I'll bring you down to the counter here in just a second when we get these out of here. Yeah, but I really thought it would be important to show you that you can see the water was over top of it. I know we're in the house now and not out in the back, but it got dark on me kind of quick, so I processed the last set in the house, which is okay. It actually did not heat the house up, which was kind of weird. But that popping noise is important. That means it's sealed. It has sealed itself. And that can take, a second. It can take, an hour. It just really depends on what you're making and things like that. But the water that's on top of these, don't sweat it. It will evaporate. These jars are, 230 some degrees right now. So I mean, they're going to do anything that, it's not going to cool quick, and it will give it time for that to evaporate. All right, so we got the last one out of here now. Bring that out of here. Oh, there went another pop. I love that sound. It's really like the coolest sound in the world. All right, so, let me sit my butt back down here. Let me get you turned and down. There is the fruit of our labors. So we got the 20, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 25 pints of tomato sauce. And all it cost was about $5 total. Is I had the lids already had. I bought them. I've had those for months now. Jars we've owned for years now. And the tomatoes we grew. So this year, it literally I didn't pay for anything other than my time. The seeds were from last year that we grew the tomatoes with. So for $4 worth of seeds, I got 2 years worth of tomatoes. That's not shabby. And I'm pretty sure I still have a half a pack down there. I'll take that every day of the week. All right, so what do we do next with our tomatoes? Well, we are going to let our tomato sauce just sit there. It's going to sit here overnight. Idealistically, 12 to 24 hours is what you want. Just don't let them be. And if you don't hear them pop right away, it's okay. Like I said, sometimes it takes a minute. But most generally, they pop within an hour. But we're just going to leave them sit here. And let them cool down to room temperature. So we got one more step to do before we put them on the shelves, but we can't do it till morning. So I'm going to go to bed, and because it's late, it's 11 o'clock. It took us about 4 hours, I think, total to process 25 cans of tomato sauce. That's not bad. I spent most of my time sitting here watching YouTube videos. So I'm not hating on it. And like I said, it might have cost us all of $5. I'm not hating on that at all. So I'm gonna let these sit here till morning, and it'll be just like a second for you. But when I come back, we'll talk about the last couple of things to do and look for with sauce, with the jars, and everything I'm showing you, other than times, pertains to anything you process. The steps are the same. But anyhow, I will see you here in just a second or in the morning. All right, I'll talk to you later. All right, so we're down to the final steps of processing, and that's just storage. So what we have to do is the following. We're going to bring the camera down here. All right, so we've let these cool. It's the next day. Yeah, we're in good shape. Now, you'll see nipples on, they look like nipples on the top of the cans. The dinging you heard a little bit ago was these sucking down in. That means it's vacuum. To ensure that, we're going to take the ring off because we're not going to store them with the rings on them. We're going to grab the lid and we're going to hold the jar, and it should hold. See how that's not falling apart? That means there's a good seal on it, right? Now, there was one or two, and there it is. This one here, the lid's already loose. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes when they seal, the lids will loosen. Even when you're taking them out, the lids will loosen. But once again, I'm just going to hold it up and make sure that it will hold the jar. That way we know we're good and sealed. So the next thing we're going to want to do is take a washcloth, one that's soapy preferred, and we're just going to give the lid a good wipe. Give the jars a good wipe down, make sure there's nothing on it, just like such. And then I'll grab a paper towel real quick to dry this one off. And then we'll dry the lid off. We're going to take a Sharpie or some form of marker, and we're going to say what it is. This is tomato sauce. All right, and then the date, which is 8/20, 5. And we're going to put that on there. That way we can stick it on the shelf. We know what it is and when it was made. That's important. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do it these other 25, but I want to talk about, or the other 24, but I want to talk real quick about storage. So, storage, idealistically, is we put these on a shelf, we rotate them in and out. There are donut holes right there if you want some. Sorry. Children. Everybody in the house is sick but me. But we're going to store these in ideal climate. In an ideal space would be a darker space with a temperature right around 68 to 72 degrees and dry. You know, not humid, not, you know, rain, not wet, nothing moist. That's not always possible, but so in our case, we just take them downstairs to the grocery store and put them on a shelf. It stays between 68 and 72 down there all year long. We have a dehumidifier down there, so it stays nice and, you know, crisp, dry. It's a darker environment unless we turn on the lights. It gets very little light, even though we have windows down there. You know, they're small windows. It's limited. And these will hold, I think the longest we've ever actually had sauce has been right around a year. But most of the time, we do enough that it will get us through the winter season if need be. We also have store-bought tomato sauce down there just in case, because you just never know. But we try to rotate through these. I actually personally prefer cooking with my own products than I do store-bought when possible. Like our Rotel that I've already made some of, but we're going to make some more. I'm going to show you how to make it. It's really easy. It's even easier than this. And it's not a 2-day process. Yeah, we'll make our own crushed tomatoes and basically in salsa. I'm getting ready to do salsa next, as a matter of fact, which you'll also get to see. And you may get to see the crushed tomato thing. It's not hard. It's not quite like this. So, that being said, you know, things to look for when you open up your lid or when you take the lid off. You'll want to smell it. Make sure it smells okay. There's nothing rancid coming out. If you go to pick this up off the shelf and this lid breaks free, throw it away. You'll have botulism in there, which I do want to do another video talking about canning in general, botulism, getting sick, things like that, acidity levels. Like I said, it is canning season, and a few of you have asked about it, so I thought I would, you know, bring you on that journey again. So anyhow, I'm going to get these put away, start a butterscotch pie, which you might see later tonight, or you might have already seen it last week, depending on when this video comes out, and get started with the day. All right? I love you. I love you very much, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Tell somebody else you love them, and you love them very much. It's going to make their day just so much better. You know, and it's nice to hear. You know, everybody should hear I love you at least once a day. You know, especially a heartfelt one. So until next time, I'll talk to you later. All right? Love you. See you then. Bye.